Welcome to the Your Business on Purpose podcast, the ultimate resource for women business owners looking to confidently navigate their entrepreneurial journey while upholding their principles. I'm Dawnette Palmore, your host and fellow entrepreneur. Join me as we immerse ourselves in illuminating conversations with accomplished experts spanning various fields across the business spectrum. Together, we'll unearth strategic insights into seizing opportunities and ensuring that your business is equipped with the essential elements aligned with your purpose and values. Welcome back to Your Business on Purpose podcast. I am your host, Dawnette Palmore, your profit and protection fractional CFO, money coach, and insurance strategist. Today, I want to talk about something that might make some of you uncomfortable. But that's okay, because that's what this podcast is about. It's about having those uncomfortable conversations. It's about having the conversations that we maybe sometimes feel like we can't have with other people, even other business owners. So that's why we're here. But I want to talk about one of the biggest financial mistakes I see entrepreneurs making: the belief that their business is their retirement plan. Now, before you get upset, just hear me out. I'm not saying your business can't help fund your retirement. I'm not saying your business doesn't have value. What I am saying is that for many entrepreneurs, their business is their only plan. And that's where things can get dangerous. Not saying always this isn't an absolute, right? Because there's always other circumstances, other things that we can take into consideration. But let me ask you this. If you woke up tomorrow and decided you didn't want to work anymore, what would happen? Would money continue to come in? Would your family be okay? Would your retirement still be funded? Would your business survive without you? Or would everything stop because you stopped? That's a question that every entrepreneur, including myself, needs to answer honestly. It's something we need to think about. It's something we need to have conversations about. Because as you guys have heard me talk about in previous podcasts, revenue is not wealth. Revenue is not profit. Being busy is not wealth. I was just talking with someone today and they were saying, I'd rather have less business and have a bigger profit margin than make more money and have a smaller profit margin. So owning a business is not automatic wealth. And for us business owners, we understand that. Sometimes the general public doesn't. But the reason that I do know this is because I've lived it. Years ago, as you may know, my husband and I owned an appraisal business for car damage. And at our peak, we were generating between $500,000 and about $750,000 a year. Now, from the outside, it looked like we were doing fantastic, phenomenal. The business looked successful. Money was coming out. We had employees, we had subcontractors back before they changed the law. We had an office. We had all the things that made it look as if we had made it. But behind the scenes, we were making so many mistakes that business owners make sometimes. We were essentially living deposit to deposit, as I like to say, kind of like the paycheck to paycheck theory. We didn't have a retirement plan. We didn't have any kind of significant savings. We weren't intentionally investing. We weren't building wealth outside our business. The list goes on and on and on about the things that we were not doing. We were simply focused on really just keeping everything moving. And when looking back, thinking about those things, every unexpected emergency, I should rephrase that. Every unexpected expense felt like an emergency. Have you ever felt like that? Everything is an emergency because we didn't plan for it, right? A vehicle repair was an emergency. A slow month was an emergency. A surprise expense was an emergency. And it's really because we didn't have the financial cushion that we should have had with the amount of money, especially we were making. Then something happened that really changed everything. The appraisal industry changed. What had once been a thriving business, started slowing down. And it didn't slow down slow. It slowed down fast. And within about 8 or 9 months, our revenue went from approximately at that point $40,000 a month to virtually nothing. I had to let everybody go. Everybody was mad at us. I didn't know what we were going to do. And it was a super stressful time. Think about that for a moment. A business that had supported our family for years literally disappeared, not overnight, but fast enough that it felt like the ground had been pulled from underneath us. Even going back in that moment is very emotional. We had to close our office. We had to let employees go. We had to let our appraisers go. We had to make some incredibly difficult decisions. And at that exact same time, my mother-in-law was dying. Ooh, it's bringing up a lot. My husband was trying to navigate the emotional stress of losing his mother while also carrying the weight of watching our business collapse. It was one of the hardest seasons of our lives. And thankfully, by that point, we started digging ourselves out of debt. We had started making better financial decisions. We had begun building some savings. But what I can tell you is, had we built significant reserves earlier, had we invested consistently, had we built wealth outside the business, this season would have looked very, very different. I think the stress would have been different. Things like that, I'm not going to ever say that it's going to take away the stress. It's going to take away this or that. It would just have felt different. The options would have been different and our decisions would have been different. And that's why I'm so very passionate about helping, especially women business owners, understand that your business is not necessarily your retirement plan. Right? Your business may be a piece of retirement strategy, but there's so much that goes into that. And honestly, I'm not saying you do have to retire, but a lot of people are focused on that and geared towards that. And that's where the mentality is at. And that's okay. Retirement can look different. It can look like partial work. It can look like just consult. I mean, there's so many things that can look at, and that's not what we're trying to talk about, but it should never be our entire strategy because business changes. As you just heard my story, industries change, markets change, technology changes, and sometimes life changes everything when you least expect it. And it can be in the blink of an eye. In just a moment, things can change. So if your business isn't your retirement plan, what should you be focused on? And I want to call them, I'm calling them the 4 pillars of entrepreneurial wealth, or I should say entrepreneur wealth. The first pillar is cash reserves. And this is such a huge one because cash creates options. Cash gives you breathing room. Cash gives you time to make decisions from logic instead of panic or emotion. Every business owner should have personal and business reserves or emergency fund or whatever you want to name this. And it's not because we're expecting a disaster, but because life happens and we can't predict it. We have no idea what the future holds. So it's very, very important for this to be one of your pillars, one of your priorities in building not just a sustainable business, but also a sustainable future, even when things change that are out of our control. The second pillar is retirement assets. So this can be Roth IRAs, SEP IRAs, solo 401ks. It could be traditional retirement accounts, or it could be other strategies, right? Real estate, life insurance, whatever other type of thing you like to invest in. You need assets that are growing outside of your business. That is a fact. Because someday you may choose not to work anymore. Someday you may choose to sell your business. Maybe you don't feel that way now, but it could be something you feel later. And so I want you to be protected. I want you to be profitable, and I want you to be educated on all the things so that you don't get caught in the moment of life. And in all honesty, you deserve that choice. You deserve choice. You deserve to have choices and options, right? We've worked hard to be able to build something. We've worked hard to provide, to help, to create impact. We should also have the power of choice. The third pillar is going to be investments. Now, many, or I should say too many business owners reinvest every dollar back into their business. And yes, we need to do that. We need to reinvest into our business, but not every single dollar. While growth is extremely important in our business, diversification is equally important. You don't want all of your financial future tied to one asset. You want money, your money, working for you in multiple places. So, as I said previously, this could be traditional retirement accounts, but not just traditional. You don't want to have all your money tied up in just that. You want to have it in other investment vehicles. And there's different things that we have talked about on these podcasts. There's different things we'll talk about later in these podcasts, but talk with people. Talk with your financial advisor, talk with your accountant, your CPA, your friends, ask about these different avenues of investing. And of course, the fourth one is protection. And this one gets ignored not just by entrepreneurs, but by many people in general, right? And maybe it's because of the way that we think about it. Maybe it's because of the way that things are shown to us. I'm not sure. But we insure our homes, we insure our cars. For crying out loud, we insure our phones. I never thought that I would see the day that we would insure our phones, but here we are. And as we should, right? Because they're an asset. They're a tool. I shouldn't say they're an asset. They're a tool that helps us to do business, to communicate, to do all kinds of things. But business owners may have never asked themselves things like, what happens if I become disabled? What happens if I need long-term care? What happens if I pass away unexpectedly? What happens to my family, to my business? Right? All those things that maybe sometimes will keep us up at night, but we don't really think on them, if that makes sense. We don't think about them in a strategic way. Like, okay, what happens if that does happen? Oh, I'm probably in trouble. I'm not sure. And then we kind of push it away, but we need to sit and think about it. What does happen if we become disabled? What does happen if I pass away tomorrow? What happens to my family? What happens to my employees, our income, all the questions, right? So I've mentioned this before. Protection planning, I should say, isn't about fear. As I said, we've talked about this before. It's not about fearing the future. It's about creating certainty in an uncertain world. It's about making sure everything you have worked so hard to build doesn't disappear because of one unexpected event. So I want to leave you with a few questions, and I want you to really maybe ponder these. And I'm going to put these questions in the show notes as well, because I think they're important to really think about. And maybe you can even reflect on them and journal about them as you're getting ready, as you're driving, or whatever it is that you're doing while you're listening to this podcast. Okay, the first question is, what percentage of your net worth is tied to your business? How much do you currently have saved for retirement or the future? Do you have emergency reserves? Do you have disability protection? Do you have life insurance that aligns with your goals? Does your spouse or significant other know where everything is? Or maybe you're single, maybe it's a child, a mom, an aunt, somebody. Does somebody know where everything is? Could your family access important financial information if something happened to you? Now, you may think, oh, my bank's gonna, whatever, everybody's gonna be friendly. They're not. So make sure you have all of that in a place that people can find it. Somebody can find it. Then ask yourself, would your business survive without you? Now, these are not comfortable questions at all by any means, right? And I think I've shared with you guys before when we were doing our trust and we were recording our last words, I guess you would call them, to our children. It became so emotional and hard. But I'd rather ask myself these hard questions than leaving it for my family to figure out, why didn't she take care of this? Right? So these questions are uncomfortable, but they are important, because the goal isn't simply to build a successful business. It's to build a successful life, a life where work, business becomes optional, a life where your family, your assets, and your business, it's all protected, a life where your money supports your goals instead of creating stress. This is the impact that we're creating, not just the impact that we think we're creating in our customer or clients' lives, but it is such a ripple effect, and it goes far beyond us and today. So if today's episode hit home for you, I want to encourage you to take the next step. And I've made it really easy for you. I've created an entrepreneur retirement readiness checklist. It's going to help you identify the gaps in your financial foundation and determine where you may need additional planning, additional thinking, additional consulting, whatever that might be. And you can download this resource by using the link I've put in the show notes. And if you'd like help creating a personal strategy, I'd love to have a conversation with you, because building wealth isn't just about making money. It's about keeping it. It's about protecting it. And it's about making sure it serves the life that you want to live. And I think that's something else we need to put a little more thought in. What kind of life is it that we want to live? Until next time, remember that money on purpose creates a life on purpose. And that's what building a business on purpose is all about. This podcast is dedicated to you and all the incredible women out there breaking chains, pushing through, and striving to make it all work. Your support truly means the world to me. Could you do me a favor? Be a gem and leave a review. It will help us reach even more women, making a bigger impact. Your feedback is invaluable, and I would genuinely appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, ensuring you never miss an episode. Until next week, live a purposeful life in both your business and your finances.